Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending this Active Communities Executive Advisory Panel on Friday the 2nd of August. I will move straight into the agenda, so it's item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you very much, Chair. We've had 2 apologies. We've had an apology from Councillor John McGee, who was supposed to be substituted by Councillor Ross Armour, but we've also received apologies from Councillor Ross Armour. Councillor Lawal has not provided apologies, but may turn up later.
Lovely, thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest? No, I see no indications. Okay, thank you. So minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of February 2024. Have you all had a chance to have a look at those and remember, because they were quite some time ago, as we say. If you're happy for us to sign those, I'll happily do that. Yeah, all in favour of those? Thank you. Thank you. Oop, thank you. Bang, bang. Right. So we'll move on to the substantive items now, which is item 4, Active Communities Strategic Framework Update and Leisure Social Values. And I'm going to hand over to Kerry Pennell, who's going to introduce this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to share my screen, but on the new Teams, I'm probably thinking, how do I do that? Can't find this presentation. It's coming to... It looks all different.
So going to window.
Oh, that's better. So. Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah. Bear with me 1 minute while I try and find my slideshow button. There it is. Got it.
No problem. Technology always stumps us sometimes.
Yeah, the new Teams has thrown me.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's just a few slides to summarise some work that we've had done as part of the overall Active Communities framework that we're producing at the moment. And after this, I'll give a brief update on where we are around the overall framework. But we thought it would be really useful as we're looking at our overall active community strategy, and we're looking at our facilities, and we're looking at future priorities for leisure and for active communities in North Northamptonshire, to work with the consultants that have been appointed to work alongside us in that overall piece of work around social value for leisure facilities. So we've undertaken a piece of work with Max Associates, who are the consultants, and they've also got access to some much broader data, industry data across the country, which has really helped us and then pull together some social value impact reports for our leisure services. So the objective was to look at social value in terms of a number of subcategories, so physical and mental health, subjective well-being, individual development, and social and community development. So the subjective being individual well-being. I think that's what that means, a bit of an odd terminology. So the facilities have included those that we run in-house, but all of our outsourced provision as well. So all of the NN-owned leisure estate, as is listed up there. So the social value attempts to quantify the impacts of activity, and so they use a social return on investment framework for measuring the various impact, whether that's economic, non-economic, social and environmental value. And it's been modelled using a framework and a model that's been adopted by Sheffield Hallam University, and that's one of the universities within the leisure industry that is often used as the sort of primary academic partner for this sort of work. So a user generates social activity when they participate in an activity, and the amount depends on a number of factors, both related to the individual themselves, but also to where they live and how long they're active for. And that's why when we look at the outputs, we're looking at both individual impact, but also wider social and community impact. So the social value calculator has been updated to incorporate latest research from Sheffield Hallam University and from Sport England. So I think it's just to reassure the committee that it's got some provenance and it's based on evidence and best practice. So the key terms and analysis based on the research from Sheffield Hallam, as just so giving a bit more detail about those categories that I mentioned before. So improved life satisfaction, so that's for individual participants, improved education attainment, enhanced human capital, reduced criminal incidences and improved social impact as well. So they're looking at the social value in the round. So that slide just reminds everybody of the facilities that were in scope and the in-house facilities listed there as well. So the next few slides just give you the outcomes, which I think is the real sort of crux of the presentation. So the social value generated by facilities across Northamptonshire during 2023 was estimated at £16.6 million, which is quite a significant sum. And that's broken down into those categories that I mentioned before, with the largest being around the subjective or the individual impact. And then that's also categorised against particular long-term conditions or other health conditions, as is shown on the right, in terms of the impact that the physical activity can have on those long-term conditions. And then I won't go in huge detail, but there's a little bit of information about some of the facilities, just to categorise and show the difference. Particularly, I suppose what's of interest is what we would call wet side and dry side facilities, whether there's a difference in social impact. So that's the one up there for the Corby Pool. And then Lodge Park, which is obviously a dry side sports centre, is slightly less in its impact. Even though, interestingly, Lodge Park is where we do most of our health-based activity, but I think it's sort of demonstrating. I mean, obviously, the pool doesn't just do wet side; it has a gym, etc. But it's just interesting, and it might be. I'm looking at Julie because Julie will know some of the technical stuff here, whether that's, it's to do with throughput of numbers of users, but it's also to do with the size of the facility, etc. So there will be some variance depending on the actual facility. And then the golf course, less value, but I think it's still important to see that up there because it has impact in different ways. I think the golf course, and whilst these are focusing on our facilities, there would be similar information if you were looking at other similar facilities elsewhere. Sport and play development, so that's more of our non-facility based activity. So that's our what we call our outreach provision, which is operated sometimes at our facilities, but in the sort of outside spaces, but also in parks and other places across Northants. And that, I believe, just gives a bit more of a breakdown of all the different, I suppose it shows what was on the previous slides, but in one particular table. So that's just a repeat of previous information. So the in-house leisure facilities sit in the top quartile when benchmarked against other sites from the wider sector in terms of social value. So I think that's really important to know. I don't know whether we were able to do, I'm looking at Julie, that comparison for our outsourced provision as well. Is that?
No, it was easier to do the in-house provision because obviously we own all that data, and it was just the first time we've run this, so it was difficult to get all that together. But going forward, we would look to do this again, perhaps in 2-3 years' time, to see the change in that. Yeah.
Thank you. So the key findings are summarised there. So £16.6 million of social value was generated across the 12 facilities during the calendar year of 2023, and that was from 132,000 participants. And the physical and mental health indicators made up £2.7 million of that total. And the average social value per person is £126, which sits in the top 25% performing sites across the sector. So it's all really positive, which is why we thought it was really important to share it a bit more widely. Before I open for questions, Chair, I'll just give an update on the framework, if that's okay, and then we can take questions in the round. So probably about a year ago now, we commissioned Max Associates to work with us to do the overall active community strategic framework, which covers an active community strategy, a playing pitch strategy, a leisure facility strategy, and a future options report for the management of NN Leisure in the round. It was always going to be quite a long piece of work, primarily because the two facility or playing pitch based strategies have to be done. They're part of the planning framework, so they have to be done in a very set methodology and have to take into account the seasonal use, particularly of playing pitches. So we always knew that was going to take over an annual cycle basically to get that done. So just to give an update, because I know some members have been asking recently where that work is up to. So we now have we're nearing getting final drafts of the 3 strategies. But before we bring them forward for further discussion and we start to air them more publicly, we want to make sure that alongside the strategies, we've got the so what. So what are the actions that are going to fall out of those strategies? Because I think for members and our residents, it's important to say, well, for example, if we know that we have an issue with a particular facility, what are we going to do about that? And one of the intentions all along was to use the leisure facility strategy, for example, to be able to bring forward an investment plan for our leisure estate, because leisure is costly to run and to maintain, and we need to make some sensible decisions as a council about where we put our money based upon population need and projected population need over the next 25 years, for example. So just to reassure members that work is well underway, it is on the forward plan for the October executive, and so we'll come to this EAP at the next meeting before it goes to executive. But if you've got any questions about any of that as well, Julie and I will try to answer those. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kerry. Yes, so I think members will find that was very informative. It just goes to show, doesn't it, that obviously active leisure adds value to our residents and also takes away some of the burden on our health services, because keeping people active makes them not need to go to the doctors as much and things like that. So, and then touching on the active communities framework, obviously, yes, an awful lot of work has been done behind the scenes. We've had so many meetings, I can't tell you, but we're nearly there, as Kerry has said. There's a lot of information that will come out of that. It'd be great to bring it back to the next EAP so you can understand what's going. But rightly so, one of the key things that wanted out of that was, what are we going to do next? How are we going to... We will have identified areas that need work, and how are we going to do that? Let's have a plan in place. And it was important to do that rather than just bring a paper and say, well, we've got the information, but then not have a plan. So we are working on that plan, so just to let everybody know. So, okay, thank you. I'm going to open it up for questions. So I think Councillor Paul Marks, you were first. Thank you.
We'll have to try this one then. Thank you, Madam Chairman. As the officers may well be aware, I'm still getting negative feedback from residents concerning Freedom Leisure in Kettering about the Core Market Hall, difficulty of making appointments to actually book the Core Market Hall for various uses, and also the swimming pool in Kettering. Sort of lack of staff, particularly in the front area, which means an awful lot of equipment is unguarded. So the risk of damage and theft, and also lack of supervision. Again, I am aware that people are aware of this, but I just thought I'd bring up the residents' concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Yeah, Julie, did you want to go? I know Julie's got an update on that, so it's nice that she'll be able to just deliver that to you. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, we are aware there's been staffing issues at Kettering for a number of months now. They've had a big turnover of managers there on site, and they appointed about a month ago a new area manager who's really getting his act together on those sites. We've also got new staff that have started in Kettering, so we're hopeful that they will pick their game up a little bit and make sure that they're more contactable and respond better to residents. But if there are, we do monitor them, we meet with them regularly, so we will keep that in mind and make sure they perform better.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Councillor Roberts, did you wish to come in? Thank you.
I just wanted to say something quite positive about what I've heard today. Knowledge is everything, really, and we've taken our time and we've worked out what the problem is, and now we're going to do something positive about it. Well-being is vital. It sits at the heart of, you go to a meeting at the hospital and the first thing they say is, we've got to get people healthier. And coming with that is a more positive attitude to life. So I'm really pleased to hear that we're taking our best practices, because we've got a lot of good best practices, into the marketplace and challenging people to follow us rather than follow their own way through. We're creating local strategic partnerships which are going to be very beneficial for the future. And I've always felt, you know, if you give £1 to the right person, you get £4 worth of work back, and we seem to be doing even better than that. So I'm really pleased to hear this report. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the team have worked really hard on this, and as you say, being able to harness that data and understand the impact that this is having on our residents is vital for us to be able to enhance the service that we have going forward. So thank you. Are there any other comments from any members with regards? Councillor Harrington, thank you.
There's obviously an awful lot of work has gone into this, and I think it's wonderful. But really, to help me understand it better, I think there is a limited amount of money, obviously, that we can spend. How do you prioritise which is more important than the other? Going through the list here, there obviously must be a way that you work this through.
So I think in terms of the list of things that are in the table that you're referring to, that's part of the social value calculator or model that is produced by Sheffield Hallam University. So they're just using a national model to say, how are we performing in terms of social value impact against them? So in terms of our prioritisation, if what we would use that, if we saw that our social value was lower from a particular thing, not comparing one facility with another that we have, but nationally comparing. So if our outreach programme wasn't having as much impact as an outreach programme somewhere else, and we got that data through the university and our other partners, then we could sort of say, well, is there something different we need to do around our outreach programme? Are we offering the right programmes? Are we targeting it in the right place? Or are we attracting the right customers? So that information, we'll use that data to tell us whether we need to shift anything. In terms of our overall prioritisation of leisure, we have, there are a number of things we're required to do because we operate facilities. Obviously, we want to make sure that all those facilities reach all the high standards that we aspire to in terms of the health and safety and the hygiene and all the the things that people want to see when they come into a facility, but then also that we are both providing a whole range of programmes that can meet the needs of the local community, but also generate an income because we have to make these facilities sustainable. So our swim programme, for example, is generates lots of money for us, and it's really, really popular, and it's really important that we teach children and adults to swim, obviously, but also we need to make sure that we balance public swimming and swim programmes, for example, in pools, with access to all the local swim clubs that want to use our facilities to train in. And then in terms of our gym dry side facilities, we need to make sure we've got enough courts provisions so that, and that's what the facility strategy and helps us map out, have we got enough, indoor courts and outdoor pitches to meet our population's needs, but also in terms of our physical our fitness, sorry, that was the word I was after. You know, have we got enough offer in terms of equipment and gym spaces to meet needs, but also from our perspective, and working with health colleagues and with public health colleagues, making sure that we play our part in delivering programmes in the leisure centres that help with people's recovery from illness. So at Lodge Park, for example, we have all of our activity and health on referral schemes, which run everything from your general, somebody saying, you know, to improve your health and well-being, come and use the gym, to cardiac rehab and stroke rehab and cancer rehab and long COVID rehab. We do a whole range of programmes around that. So it's always about getting the balance right around our offer and listening to feedback, because we do an annual survey of our leisure users, so all of our customers, both in terms of the offer and facilities, so we're listening to feedback, but also any other feedback that people hear in the community. We want to hear that so we can look to improve. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Yeah, and I think when we're looking at these programmes as well, there's always other avenues of gaining funding through public health and things like that, and joint sort of working so that we can enhance the programmes that we run within our facilities. So, yeah, luckily we have public health on side as well who are able to support us with those sort of programmes within all of our facilities. So, thank you. Jill, thank you.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chair. It's great to see this actually itemised and down to different ailments, etc., and actually put figures on it. It really sort of brings it to life. As Councillor Howe was just saying about different, the knock-on effect to well-being and public health. We recently went to Lodge Park for to see what they were doing and with their COVID rehabilitation scheme, and it was very impressive, and shows you the sort of things that can be done. So I think there's an awful lot of work gone into this, and it's really good to see the figures, and ongoing. There'll be even more coming forward.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Kerry, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, as a point of clarity, I just wanted to, because I've just realised that I didn't want to mislead you. So the Active Communities Framework is coming to Executive in October. The final piece of work from that commissioned activity with the consultants is to produce the future management options report for leisure. Obviously, members will be aware we have a mixed model at the moment, so in-house service delivery in Corby, and then outsourced providers in the other areas. And the different contracts that we have in place, which are largely legacy contracts, all come to an end around 27-28. So we wanted to get really ahead of the game and start looking at all the future options, because whatever we do in the future is going to take quite a lot of work to make that happen, whether that's re-tendering of contracts or bringing it all under one contract, or potentially bringing things in-house. We don't know, and there's lots of things to consider. So that piece of work won't report in October. That's due to report before the end of the financial year. So it will come subsequently. I just didn't want to mislead anybody. I realised that probably didn't make that clear. So thank you.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Yes, so obviously the Active Communities framework is a massive piece of work, as Kerry said. There's lots of elements to it, and then we need a plan on how we're going to invest in our facilities. But as Kerry has rightly said, we also need to understand moving forward what is the best provision throughout the whole of Northampton, because we have so many legacy sort of contracts and things, and we were very lucky early on that we were able to align those contracts so that they all sort of finish at the same time, so that we could look at it in the round, as Kerry said, 27-28, I think you said, wasn't it, Kerry? And then that secondary piece of work will give us the data to show, one, financially, which is a best option, but also what value it adds to our residents, I think, which is really important. Can we provide the best service, but also at a good cost that this council can afford. And I think that's really important, and that will be a really good piece of work that was coming forward, and I'll absolutely value your input when that comes to this EAP, following on from the Active Communities Framework in October. So yeah, thank you. Councillor Roberts, you wanted to come back.
And it's more than we can hope for. It's really, looking forward to that. I think we've got a golden opportunity here to do some really good work and look into it and have a jolly good chat about it, and perhaps even go out and visit some places, and then come back and spend some time really talking the odds, which is what we like to do sometimes. And then we can take it back to the executive and recommend it. That's going to be an important thing.
Yeah, thank you. I must add, I'm obviously working with the leisure team now for the past 3 years or so. The dedication, especially from our in-house team, is phenomenal. Julie and Kerry, Julie, and the team. When I get to, and I'm very lucky because I get to go and visit all of these centres and meet the teams and see the work that's going on. The enthusiasm and the dedication from the team is absolutely fantastic. And, you know, that is what we want to harness. We need to keep it. And you can see that from the figures that we're getting. People are wanting to go to our leisure centres. They're wanting to engage with this, and it's having a fundamental impact on our residents, and we need to keep that going. So I can only absolutely thank the team because they do a phenomenal job. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Okay, thank you, Julie. If everybody's happy, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. And thank you very much, everyone, for your input. It's really valuable. So the next item on the agenda is the North Northamptonshire Greenway Strategy, and it's over to you again, Kerry. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. So members will have in front of them in their packs a updated version of the Strategic Master Plan and a summary report of information that's going before Executive later this month. And I thought it was important to share because you will remember that prior to the initial report going to the Council Executive in September 2023, we had a conversation here about the draft strategy and the fact that it was going out for consultation. So the report in September asked for approval to take that draft strategic master plan out to consultation with the public and for further engagement with some of our key stakeholders. That consultation was undertaken between the 21st of September and the 1st of November 2023, and the final draft of the strategy is now taking into consideration the feedback that we had. So just by way of a reminder, because this again is a culmination of quite a significant piece of work over the last couple of years. So the objectives of the North Northants Greenway are to enable people to choose to walk, wheel, cycle for a range of trips and purposes, and that could be getting to and from school or from commuting to work, leisure trips. So it is about, you know, thinking about it in the round about what it can provide. It's about accessibility and providing an active travel network. And it's about helping to deliver the green infrastructure across North Northants, including the Eyes and Name Valley corridors. It's about tourism, and it's about improving vitality of our towns when you improve connectivity between towns and businesses. It's about safe routes, obviously, and it really does contribute to our sustainable transport and our climate change agenda. So the strategy was aimed to provide a clear vision. It's very evidence-based, so you may remember from the report last year, there was a huge amount of work that was done looking at all that data and evidence and analysis about the different sorts of trips and the way people travel across North Northants in order to come up with some proposals around routes. So it's absolutely evidence-based. It's also looking at future funding opportunities. Remember, we talked last time about there isn't any direct financial implications from the strategy at this point. It's being costed, but we want to bring in external funding. And we're looking at developer contributions as an option for that, but also other funding opportunities. It's absolutely linked to the local cycling and walking infrastructure plans. It is, in effect, a rural version of the LC WIPs. And so it, you know, it really has quite significant strategic value when you look in the round of the planning documents that the council is developing. So the consultation was well received. We had just under 300 public responses to the consultation, and of those, 288 respondents supported supported the creation of the Greenway and what we were trying to achieve. We had most of the public comments were more specific in relation to things like that you would probably expect, which wasn't about the need to do it, because everybody agreed with that largely. It was about making sure that routes are safe, that they're well lit, that they are well maintained from the outset, because I know that with some of the routes we already have, there's been some issue about maintenance, that they're accessible, that they're inclusive to all members of the community, and that they deliver that connectivity. So those were the sort of, in the broadest sense, the sorts of comments that we had. So in March this year, the Greenway Programme Board considered all the outputs from the consultation, and as a result, various changes have been made to the strategy that went out for consultation. So just a quick summary of some of those changes. So the vision has been slightly amended to include specific reference to equestrian users, because that wasn't in there initially. So the vision is now that the Greenway will be a strategic rural network of safer, largely traffic-free routes suitable for walkers, wheelers, cyclists and equestrian users where appropriate, connecting settlements, employment, leisure and tourism destinations across North Northamptonshire and beyond. We had quite a lot of stakeholder or further stakeholder comments, because we had engaged widely with stakeholders to get to the draft, but it's always useful when you've got a final document or got a draft document that they can then pour through it and give further comments. So the Environment Agency asked us to make sure that any of the routes close to rivers, wherever we're proposing those, that we undertake flood risk assessments and put in adequate measures for disposing of waste when constructing any parts of the network. We had quite a lot of further engagement with our planning policy colleagues, because they want to make sure that the right sort of weight is given to the strategic document. So we've added in various things. So defining the Greenway as a rural LC WIP, so that's been made clearer. Making sure that it's clear in the strategy that whilst we did identify some priority routes initially, that doesn't mean to say that all 33 routes aren't important and that we won't seek to deliver all of those. And actually some of those might come forward before priority routes because of funding opportunities. So it's just to say, whilst we did a prioritisation, actually all of the routes are important. We've strengthened in the strategy how neighbourhood plans can support the delivery. Maintenance has, because it came up through the public consultation as well, so we've re-emphasised the fact that maintenance agreements need to be in place before any spade in the ground starts, so that we know at the beginning how those routes are going to be maintained, whether that's in terms of vegetation clearance, bin emptying, etc., etc. Because we know there's been some issues around that. And then the only thing that isn't quite fully resolved yet is around the developer contributions formula. So there's more work to be done, and that's partly because, rightly so, our planning policy colleagues want to make sure that that we comply with the relevant regulations and legislation around 106, because you can only ask for those contributions if there is significant planning gain, and at the moment, to be honest, they're not 100% convinced that there is a complete alignment. So what we've changed, both you'll see it in the report and in the strategy, we want to emphasise that whilst developer contributions will be important and we need to find the right mechanism to secure those, we also need to look at all potential funding opportunities. And just to mention that when we when this report was discussed at the executive briefing yesterday, there was an ask that we take out the specific reference to the community infrastructure levy, because at the moment North Northampton actually hasn't formally adopted the mechanism to do that. It doesn't mean to say it wouldn't in the future, but at the moment it hasn't. So it's more about saying, whilst we still work on the developer contributions formula, let's look at all potential funding opportunities. The next steps are set out in the report, and that's that we're going to develop a website to promote the Greenway. We are continuing to recruit Greenway champions, so we asked for champions to come forward as part of the consultation, and we've signed 3 up so far. We're obviously looking to sign more up. We're going to do more promotion of the existing Greenway routes, and we will be putting in place meetings every couple of years for our champions and for other local interest groups, so that we're really trying to get local people behind the programme and how this can be delivered. Continue to engaging with landowners and key partners. We obviously have our 4 lead members from across each of the localities, so there is a Greenway lead in each of the 4 areas who are doing a great job around all of that local engagement, which is really, really important. And we will continue to look at the design recommendation booklets. And I think it's important to say that since the consultation, also since this came here last year, we have got some positive interest from particular groups in particular villages and towns, and that has really helped progress some routes. And as a result of some of that work, for example, we've been able to secure £100,000 worth of funding through a variety of sources for the Market Harbour to Braybrook section of the Greenway, and that's how that work is really important locally, to work with local town and parish councils and local groups. And whilst that obviously that part of the route does stretch outside of North Northamptonshire, our focus is within North Northamptonshire, but we won't pass up any opportunities to connect to wider areas as well. So the only thing before I finish, Chair, I was going to mention, as well as the change around the developer contributions, at exec briefing yesterday we were asked to update the logo which is in the report to include a wheelchair, so that has been done. So the report that will go to executive will have a wheelchair in the logo, and just to re-emphasise some of the safety routes, to re-emphasise safety, so where the routes are adjacent to the Blue Way or to expanses of water, that we make sure that we're emphasising about safety in relation to proximity to water as well. So that needs to be updated in the report. So that's just a summary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kerry. That was very comprehensive. Thank you. David, you're just trying to look at if we can get the new proposed logo up so you can have a look with the, just so that it's coming up. But in the meantime, I won't put him under any pressure. Councillor Roberts, you wanted to make a point. Oh, David, lovely. Councillor Roberts, would you like to come in? Thank you.
Well, we're having a positive day. I think it's absolutely vital that we continue to work with the developers. We mustn't let them think that they're not loved and they want to go away and do their own thing. It's absolutely vital, because what we're doing here is we're actually saying to people, you have accepted growth and we're going to make the community better. That was our promise, and that's what we're doing in this document. And it's all about access to the countryside, safe access to the countryside. So some of this work, I mean, there's some of it near to where I live, it's just outstanding stuff. But yes, we do need to make sure that we put the effort in and make sure that we work together as a team, as a local strategic team, to make sure we deliver on this. And there's some really exciting stuff. I mean, when you think about it, you can think about Wellingborough, Burton Latimer at one end, and come all the way down, stop off for an ice cream at Wicksteed's Park, and then go on beyond and out towards Geddington. You can do that on a bike or walk. You don't have to worry about cars. Your children are safe. Yes, there is a river, there's a stream there, and we've got to be able to make sure people are safe. But it means you could conceivably go to work without having to get involved in the kerfuffle and fuss that goes with that. And with the policies that we're bringing forward on buses, if I may just say, it's just going to be a win-win. Sorry.
Not at all, not at all. Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Yes, it's come in, Jeff, in a second. This is about collecting communities. It's about making the open countryside, the beautiful open countryside that we have in this district, accessible to all. And also, you know, enhancing our tourism offering. This greenway, it started small, and now the desire is to create it through the whole of Northamptonshire. And we've got 4 really good councillor champions, and Councillor Shacklock is one of them. And they're working with our local landowners, because obviously we are safe. We're working with the local landowners because obviously we have to get their buy-in. You know, this is about, we need access sometimes across their land to enable us to connect these walkways.
I think the landowners will be with you on this if it's a good, well thought out, set out plan.
Yeah, and there are other opportunities now where we had a meeting recently whereby one of the stakeholders within the team said that there's extra funding for landowners if they allow public access across their land. So there are opportunities there for landowners to get involved.
Well, you know and I know that landowners do have people having the right to access to their land, and they would like to manage it.
And actually it's about managing it, isn't it? Because, you know, people do tend to wander. And if there is a specified walkway across their land, that's about managing it. And I think one of the key issues here as well, and Kerry raised it, is about maintaining those walkways across the land. But also, you know, every opportunity that we can, we will be looking for funding of these routes. So if you hear of any funding, it's been brilliant that the Braybrook to Market Harborough route has secured that £100,000 towards this scheme, which is fantastic. And that's working with the local towns and parishes, as Kerry said. So it's really key that they also buy into this. So, if you know, as we're out and about, we're meeting our towns and parishes, promoting this greenway is fundamental to its success. So, yeah, thank you. Councillor Shacklock, one of our champions, councillor leads on the greenway. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure I'm a champion, but I just wanted to continue the positivity on this one, because more recently I've been finding that landowners are becoming much more acceptable about this. And one of the reasons is because they are recognising that they can then control where people are crossing their land. So it is becoming very positive to my mind. And also I do welcome the fact that the equestrian element is being involved, because a lot of people that I speak to are horse riders, and they want to be involved in it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, absolutely. Any way of getting people off our roads and utilising this fantastic access routes that we're creating throughout the whole of Northants, on wheels, walking, horses, ponies, donkeys, whatever it might be, getting them out and about. It's another form of exercise as well. Let's not forget, this all goes to... It sort of links into what we were talking about earlier in the previous agenda item about health and well-being and promoting getting out and utilising our beautiful countryside. So, Councillor Roberts.
Hanwood Park has just finished or recently finished a cycle pathway. And I have to tell you, of a hot summer's evening over the last few days, it's been really quite crowded. It's brought people out to go and have a walk. It's working. Well done.
Thank you. Jill, sorry, I seem to miss you on my right-hand side. Apologies.
Because you look that way. Yeah, yes, it's marvellous to see it come this far from the beginnings at East Northants. I remember the day when we put £1 million into it, and we were thinking, well, where's this going to go? And it's absolutely, fantastic where it's all led to. I'm glad Kerry mentioned about the safety, because that was brought up about the Environment Agency and said about the flooding. and that's obviously an issue, but water safety, having had a tragic death recently. So and they're very, very much alive to that. And there's other safety as well, because some routes, if they're, a long stretch with no exit, and I know it's certainly one that's being addressed. So, it all needs to be taken into account, but, it's really good to be able to provide something that people can get out, walk safely, or cycle, or go on horse, or wheelchair, or whatever. So it's really good to be able to provide that.
Thank you. Yes, you mentioned about safety, and it's absolutely right that we do all we can to protect our residents, especially around waterways, and that sort of came to a head this week, didn't it, really? But the Greenway Board, we do have the Environment Agency on that board, so it's very, very useful for us to keep that dialogue open with them. So thank you. Jane, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chair, and I can't resist saying something about this, because obviously, as a Director of Public Health, this is one of those areas of work that has so many benefits and so many wins. And I think, as well as Councillor Howe slightly stole my thunder talking about the connection with the previous item, because you're absolutely right, active communities, active framework, this feels so part of that. But also, from my perspective, there's a really huge issue around isolation and connecting communities and mental health and well-being. The evidence is so strong that being outdoors in that sort of environment is so good for people. And, my view as being a more recent arrival into North Northants, I've been here nearly a year, such a beautiful place, such amazing spaces in North Northants, and to connect those in a way like this is just an amazing asset. And I think from a public health perspective, it's got so many wins, and just really congratulating the work that's gone on around this, because it feels really positive.
Thank you very much. Yes, it seems actually I'm very lucky in my portfolio, because everything we do connects with each other. I mean, we're talking about our leisure.
But it wasn't easy, and you had to have vision and hard work behind it to get it going in the right direction. Well done, you.
Well, we've got a fantastic team behind us, really fantastic team. So, I'm very lucky to be able to work with these fantastic people who have absolute vision as well on these things. So, but as well, this fits in with our tourism strategy, because obviously enhancing our area, making it accessible to people, brings tourism to the area, so they all fit hand in glove with each other. So yeah, it's fantastic that we are connecting all these things together. So yeah, thank you. Councillor Roberts, would you like to put the mic on?
A friend of mine who moves companies around, he's getting quite interested in this area. He's reading about things that's being done. It's so important. We want jobs. It's no good just building a factory. You've got to get the people there. And what you say about open space, quietude as well. If you have to walk up the road next to the main road, that's one sort of walk. But if you can walk across a field on a gravel pathway, knowing that you're safe and you're in the right place, is marvellous. It's just so exciting.
Thank you. Yes, let's not forget this is a long project. We're not going to achieve it all we're not going to achieve it in 5 minutes. And of course, it can expand constantly. So when new routes come to mind or are proposed, we can always enhance the programme. I'd definitely like to get on with it, but as always, we've got to find the funding. So we will do our utmost to get that funding as soon as possible. So thank you. Are there any further comments from anybody at all? No? Looking around the room. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. We will make note of all your very positive comments, and I thank you very much for the support that you've given to both of these items on the agenda, and also to the officers who have done a fantastic job. Right, I'm now actually going to hand the chair over to Councillor Mercer, who's going to take you through the rest of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howell. So next item is the Health and Wellbeing Strategy Update. There's been a lot of work going on in this area. A fantastic team as well, I might add. And Pip, are you, or Jane, do you want to say something first?
Thank you, Chair. I just thought I'd maybe start with giving a little bit of context to the Health and Wellbeing Strategy. So it all fits incredibly well today in terms of items on the agenda, because you'll see that keeping active is a really important part of what we want to do going forward. And just to remind people that being inactive is very, very bad for your health. There's growing evidence that being inactive can be as dangerous as a whole range of other things that we shouldn't be doing. So all of this work about bringing together the ability and the accessibility for opportunities to be active, to me, is just music to my ears, as I'm sure you can imagine. So the health and wellbeing strategy is a fundamental part of what we do in public health. It's a strategy for the system. It's not just a strategy for the council. The key areas that we've picked up within that are things that we think we can make a difference to, that we can add to, and that we can expand on. So the approach we've taken is to be an active strategy. Excuse the pun, considering the what we're here for today. But it's really about saying, as an economy, what else could we be doing around these really big areas that are causes of ill health and health inequality. So what Pip is going to do today is give a little bit of overview of how we're doing that. It's hard work, but I think it's shown real benefits already. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the two areas we've been focusing on so far. It's a whole year's programme to then embed the strategy, which is smoking and vaping and keeping active. But the other areas that we're focusing on include children and young people, obviously, that's hugely important, mental health and wellbeing, and also financial resilience, because financial resilience, we've talked a lot about wellbeing today. If we really want to think about what are the things that make us happy, which help us meet our opportunities and meet our potential, I guess, in life, that's a really important issue. So these are the things we're focusing on, and I think, Pippa, if you can give that overview of where we are and what approach we're taking, and then we're really open for questions, comments, suggestions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Just to introduce myself as well, so I'm Pippa Williams, and I'm an acting consultant in public health in the public health team here at North Northants Council. So I'm just going to recap and give an overview, as Jane said, of the process and the implementation approach that we've taken, and a bit more detail on the smoking and vaping and the keeping active priorities. So just to touch in how those priorities were got to, so that was a prioritisation process in conjunction with a wide range of key partners across the system. So that involved members, elected members and officers from the council, also our integrated care board partnership across the system, and also going out then into the place-based approach with local area partnerships, voluntary groups, and also our local health and wellbeing providers. So to get to those 5 key priorities, it's really been a shared approach and a shared ownership of this. And so, as Jane mentioned, we have those 5 key priorities, and a decision was made by the Health and Wellbeing Board to take a phased implementation approach to that. So that's highlighted on page 135 in your pack. And there's 3, for each of those priorities, there's 3 key stages. There's a preparation stage, and that's thinking, okay, within this topic, what are the key themes that we want to focus on? For each of those 5 priorities, they then bring that in a paper to the Health and Wellbeing Board for discussion from all stakeholders around those suggested priorities. And then bring another paper back after reflecting on those with a programme delivery plan, which sets out a key aim and some objectives. And then they move into the implementation phase. So we're really in that rolling implementation now. So smoking and vaping as the first priority area has gone through the preparation and discussion at Health and Wellbeing Board and is in the implementation phase. And the keeping active as the second priority has come for that initial discussion at Health and Wellbeing Board at the last one, and is now setting out the key aims and objectives, and will come back at the next Health and Wellbeing Board with that programme delivery plan. And at the same time, the children and young people are now in that preparation zone and are going to bring a paper for discussion at the next Health and Wellbeing Board. So it's now in that really rolling phase, moving all of them to implementation. Also, just to highlight, so on page 137 in the pack, just sets out the governance structure that's been set up for this. Because it wants to be that active programme approach, we really wanted a strong governance structure to help review progress and unblock any challenges to implementation. So there will be a programme set up for each of those key priorities with a programme lead and a sponsor at Health and Wellbeing Board. And there'll be a strategy programme oversight, which is made up of stakeholders from across the system. They meet monthly, and they will help review progress and discuss any challenges that there are raised by the programmes. And they'll then act up as that escalation process into North Place Delivery Board and up to Health and Wellbeing Board if needed. And we've linked in the Place Delivery Board there really to ensure that this is embedded and shared across the system. And to note as well, so underneath the programmes are those place-based partnerships and the local area partnerships. We know they're really key in terms of implementation. So for each of the programmes, there will be parts of the key activities which will be working with the LAPs. And we've got an example of that in the smoking and vaping programme to hopefully make it a bit more, to help understand how that might work. So pages 138 and 139 just set out how this works for smoking and vaping. So as I said, we're now in the implementation phase. So we brought a discussion paper to Health and Wellbeing Board and then used that feedback to develop an overall aim and some key work streams. So the overall aim for us is to reduce the prevalence of smoking in our population and also reduce the inequalities in smoking. So we know we have some population groups which have much higher rates of smoking. So that's a real target for us to reduce the inequalities that we see there. So we're doing that through 4 work streams. So number 1 is to increase the number of residents supported to stop smoking through our local authority stop smoking service and also our NHS services. So we have some additional funding for our local authority service from the government, which we're expanding our team with. So we've just gone through some recruitment to recruit 3 new stop smoking advisors who work with clients to support them to stop smoking. And we're also working with our NHS colleagues to ensure that we've got that consistent approach and everyone feels supported across the services that they interact with. Our second work stream is to provide targeted support to the population groups with higher prevalence of smoking. So this is around those inequalities. So we're working our first 3 priority areas are working with routine and manual workers. So we know that they're a population group who have much higher smoking rates, so it can be up to 30% in some areas of our population. So we're doing a targeted bit of work in Corby through the local area partnership to develop and work with that community to understand what we're not doing right for them and what the service could look like for them to help support them to stop smoking. And then we're also working with mothers in pregnancy who are still smoking and also looking to support our population who have severe mental illness because they also are a population with much higher smoking rates. And the final 2 programmes in this one for smoking and vaping, one is looking at prevention activities focused on smoking and the use of e-cigarettes in children and young people. So we know that this is a priority and concern for lots of people in the system. And we've got some good activities up and running in this area. So we're working with children and young people a lot in this. So we're supporting Tresham College, who have some students there who want to run their own campaign around the use of e-cigarettes. So we're doing some work with them in the new term in September to support them with that. We have a guidance policy for secondary schools on how they can reduce the use of e-cigarettes within their setting. And we've just piloting that with a few secondary schools to launch it at the beginning of term in September. We're also, as we've taken this through the various groups, this paper, we've had lots of people interested in this. So we're re-establishing a working group on this in September. So we've got colleagues across the fire service who are interested. We've got colleagues in safeguarding and community safety who are all interested in this issue. So we're bringing those together. And the final work stream is around trading standards. So we've got a specific project at the moment working to map some hotspots of illegal sales and underage sales, and then they'll work to do some targeted test purchasing and a targeted comms campaign as well to encourage people to report illegal products. So hopefully this gives a bit of a flavour of what each of those priority areas will look like as they come through the Health and Wellbeing Board strategy process. And I said that's the stage which Keeping Active is at the moment, to develop those targeted work streams. And the key thing for us is that we're supporting groups and mechanisms and activity that's already ongoing in the system. So we're not duplicating everything, but it's trying to give that really focused approach.
Thank you, Pippa. I just want to give members as well the assurance that when we talk about some of these particular projects, these aren't going to be just located in one place. So we... Oh, I thought it switched myself off then. So the Corby example around smoking and vaping, I think, is a really good one, because Corby had at one point the rather dubious title of one of the highest rates of, or the highest rate of smoking in the country. So we know there's something else we could be doing, and there's been lots of work, and that has come down. It has come down. But what we know about smoking is we haven't had the impact we want equally. So where, if you look at where people, the deprivation status, for example, against smoking, it's a very stark picture. Our lowest rates of smoking are in the most affluent groups. So the health inequalities that come with smoking are significant. What we want to do is something different. So if we develop something with our communities in Corby, that we're going to robustly evaluate that, we've got an evaluation framework around that, we can then move that into other areas of North Northants and say, well, actually, this is something that could work in Kettering, could work in Wellingborough, it could work in Rushden, in different communities. But we want to get the evidence that we're doing that right, and then we'll roll it out. Each of the areas of the health and wellbeing strategy will have these. I've put a little bit of funding against that, so we can do innovative things in different communities to try things perhaps we haven't tried before. That's what I mean by it being an active strategy. It's not just about bringing in assurance across the system that we are doing X, Y, and Z. If there's a gap, let's try something that's a bit different. We robustly evaluate it and see, can we make bigger impacts across our communities?
Thank you very much. You can see that, first of all, it's very much a partnership approach. The Health and Wellbeing Board is comprised of lots of different partners. And also, it's not a strategy that's just written on a piece of paper and then, you know, oh, that's what we want to do. It's a very active strategy and going into each of the different areas. And so then you can measure the outcomes of that, and that is the most important. For instance, with the women smoking pregnancy, our rates have gone right down recently. We're very, very pleased about that. So it's very much an active programme, and it's all really connected with the active living and leisure and everything as well, especially the active strategy, Keeping Active strategy, which is being led by Northamptonshire Sport, for instance. So, you know, as I say, it's not just the council, it's outside as well. Does anyone... Yeah, Councillor Harrington.
I'd like to really just ask, because I've got a big thing about smoking, vaping, mainly because I used to smoke when I was younger. It becomes serious in later life, and just to, without boring everybody with the whole story, I used to be a very active young man. A long time ago that was, when I was a young man, but I was a very active young man, did amateur boxing, for example, for 3 years, etc., etc. Through smoking, I had a heart attack 2.5 years ago, and that was really through smoking. I also ended up with blocked arteries. I had operations on my legs within the last year or two. They were very risky operations. I might have lost both legs. It was that serious. So, and everything's gone well. I've got a load of scars everywhere, but I'm fine. So I got a big thing about this, but what can we actually do to stop the young people from starting to smoke? I mean, years ago when I started smoking, everybody wanted to be John Wayne. I don't know if you've heard of John Wayne, young people, but yes, to hell it is. Yeah, but everybody wanted to smoke because the movie actors all smoked and everything else, and people didn't understand the dangers of it. They do now, and I'm not sure that vaping is any better than smoking. It might be maybe it is a way of weaning folk off smoking, but I haven't seen that as well. I see a lot of people going from cigarettes onto vaping, continuing to vape. So it's okay us saying that we'd like to try to do what we can, but as a local authority, what can we actually really do to make a difference with people ceasing to smoke? We can only do it by the government making cigarettes and vaping too expensive, that in the end a lot of people have got to go, just can't afford it. I mean, what can we do as a local authority, really?
I'll pass to Jane to help.
Firstly, John Wayne. I was brought up with John Wayne. My dad's a huge John Wayne fan, so yes, I myself would like to have been John Wayne at one point. So I think that's a really, really very important question, and I'm really pleased that you've raised your own personal story about smoking, Councillor, because I think that people do know the harms of smoking. However, we also have to accept that there's a lot of social norms about smoking, which is why in some communities we see generational families that going through smoking. You know, each generation continues to smoke, and we need to address that. We absolutely need to address that. I totally take on board your issues around vaping and concerns around that. We're all concerned about that. I'm very clear on this. If you smoke, vaping, from the evidence we've got now, is less harmful and can help you stop smoking. If you don't smoke, don't vape. That, I think, is a clear message from the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, and we need to really, really push that as a local authority. There are things we can do. So the things within the legal framework that we can do around making sure that things about smoking in different areas where you're not allowed to smoke is enforced. We're working with trading standards about making sure we don't have counterfeit products, because you're absolutely right. The things that drive people include price. Price and accessibility are two really big issues. And if people are buying cheap counterfeit cigarettes, that's a huge problem. Huge problem. And there's some amazing work that goes on locally about tackling that. So as a local authority, that's our role, and we do a lot of work in that area. I think where I'm really interested in going, and I'm very open about this, you know, I'm a director of public health, both of my children vaped. I was very unhappy. So they know my views on smoking, on vaping, and I'm very clear, if you don't smoke, don't vape. But they did that. And I've talked to them about that at great length, as I'm sure you can imagine, directly and robustly. And they both have said to me, these things are marketed at us. They're marketed at us as young people. And the one I found in my son's bedroom, which is how these conversations started, looked like a sweet. It smelt like a sweet. These things are actively marketed at young people, and that's been raised by Chris Whitty nationally. It's been raised by the government, the last government nationally as well, and I'm sure it's being picked up by the new one. We need to make sure that we have the right support and education in place for young people, which is why I'm so excited about Tresham College coming on board with this. Because me, as a 50-something-year-old Director of Public Health, will probably have less impact than a young person really spearheading that work around what do we do to stop people getting into something that could be difficult to get out of. People forget that vaping has an addictive product in it. And you know yourself as an ex-smoker, and I know I come from a family of smokers. I remember I'd go around to my old-fashioned family. Everybody would go to my grandma's house on a Saturday. Everybody smoked. That has changed over the years, but it's not been easy for any of those people. A lot of my family I've lost through smoking-related diseases. It's hard. It's a very difficult thing to give up. We need to have the right education to stop people starting, and we need to have the right services to support people to stop. For some people, stopping smoking can be helped by the use of an e-cigarette or vaping. And then what we do then is look at supporting them to come off that as well. Lots of people still go for patches, lots of people still go for sprays. There's a new tablet that's come on board that we're looking at as well. We need a multifaceted approach as a local authority. And I think that that's what this is focusing on. But we also need to work with our NHS colleagues. So smoking and pregnancy. If I could say one thing to pregnant women, do not smoke when you are pregnant. Start planning to give up smoking before you get pregnant. We can help you with that as a system. There's lots of good support in place. You are setting yourself up for such a better outcome if you stop smoking whilst you're pregnant and then continue that as a new parent. We've got to get all of that right. We're going in the good direction. Our own services as a local authority are so busy, hugely busy, which is why we've put that investment into new workers. And also making sure we've got workers that meet the needs of the population. We've got a Polish-speaking worker, for example. We've got to look at it from every angle. And we've got to keep completely questioning ourselves and evaluating what we're doing to say, are we doing enough? So why are we not meeting routine and manual workers in the same way other groups have been met in terms of smoking prevalence? We've got to try, got to do something different. And I think that laser focus on the outcome of getting to a point where we've got far, far fewer people smoking. 1 in 2 people who smoke will die through smoking. We've got to really focus on that and get that message out there. And I think it's multifaceted. That's a very long answer to your question, but I'm very passionate about this, Councillor.
Yeah. I was only going to say as well, if I can just come back on that, if there is anything I can do, maybe speaking to schools, speaking to boys' clubs, that kind of thing. I'm quite happy to do that because I firsthand know the seriousness of what smoking, from a rather young age. I think I started smoking at 15 when I left school. So at a very young age, you start to smoke, and you smoke for whatever, 30, 40 years, long time. It does a lot of harm. The thing I was going to say about vaping, why I'm not sure it is any better. I'm sure it is slightly better, but I've been reading on news articles that young people, 13, 14, that kind of age group, have started vaping, and as a result of that, have ended up in hospital. And so I think to myself, it really can't be that much better, although it may be a little better. That's all.
If I can just, through you, Chair, come back. Yeah, I think that, so that we have had issues nationally and internationally with counterfeit, with vapes that we don't know what's in them. They're not regulated in the same way as other things. And that has been a huge issue. The other thing we're all concerned about is there have been concerns around people vaping illicit substances through them as well. So there's a whole range of issues we're worried about in that space. And just to give everybody assurance, we've got a tobacco alliance in Northamptonshire that we're part of, and I've been pushing with the Integrated Care Board that there's a bigger focus on smoking and vaping across the whole system. What we're doing as part of that is being on top of the evidence all the time. So the evidence at the moment is suggesting that we can't easily quantify how much less harmful vaping is than smoking, but certainly it is. So that's what the national guidance is at the moment. But there's a very strong focus on looking at the evidence, making sure we're on top of it and responding to that. But I think that we need to all be very clear on that message. If you don't smoke, don't vape. And I think that we just need to have that very, very strong message. And I would imagine over the years there will be more legislation around this and different things will come in. But that issue of Trading Standards doing that amazing work around vapes as well as around cigarettes is really important. And of course the other thing that we all really don't want is single-use vapes and things where we have got a huge responsibility for a sustainable planet. That's also something that we don't want. So there's a lot of facets to this. I didn't know, Pippa, whether... Sorry, I'm completely hogged. We're all very passionate about smoking and vaping, as you imagine, in public health. It's the leading cause of premature death. So I will, be quiet and pass over to Pippa, if that's okay, Councillor Mercer.
Did you have anything to add on that, Pippa?
No, I think you've covered it all, Jane. I think there was just one thing that I was going to highlight, as well as just a message to get out there in terms of our services that we offer through the local authority stop smoking service. So that's where people come in. They get 12-week support. That's behavioural support from an advisor, and also access to the products that help people wean off that nicotine addiction. We do know that there's evidence that people are 3 times more likely to be able to quit smoking if they come through a programme that has that behavioural support and the access to products. So I think that's just another message, if there are people you know that smoke, or services that you work with, to get that message out there that we are there to support them, and we're expanding that team. So I think that's just the other thing to highlight.
You mentioned about government and what we can do as opposed to government, and they do play a part. For instance, they gave us some extra money, which has allowed us to expand this service. So there was waiting lists, and so that's allowed us to deal with the cases more quickly. But basically, they were people coming forward saying, I want to give up smoking. So obviously, the side of trying to persuade people to give up smoking is one thing, but when people have actually made the decision to do so, we're able to help them now in a much more effective way. And as far as the vaping goes, Jane mentioned about working with the young people. There was a couple of young people at the Big 50 from Tresham. They spoke so passionately anti-vaping, and I thought to myself at the time, I wish we could harness them to get this message out. So the actual younger people, and I'm so pleased that they're now working with these young people, because they will listen to other people of their peers much more readily. And I've also had reported to me about people, them being like sweets, advertised like, sweeties. So, the government might have a role to play there with stopping advertising. So, yes, the government does have some role to play, but we are able to do quite a bit as well on a local level. I think, Councillor Roberts, did you say something?
I mean, the conversation's going the way I was hoping it was. I'm addicted to nicotine. I don't smoke, but I'm still addicted. So every day is a little battle. What I would like is your focus on stopping them before they start. We really do need to ensure and make sure that our schools are clean of this stuff. And remembering that there is a very, very big business that is out there with a lot of money advertising a product in particular ways to make it attractive to certain age groups, usually young. There was a rumour when I was a much younger person that Marlborough, and I'm sure without prejudice they didn't do this, but the rumour was that they'd increased the strength of their cigarettes to go into the marketplace. When they'd hooked the people they wanted to hook, they then dropped back to their normal nicotine levels, thus saving some money. There's enough nicotine in a packet of 20 to kill a horse. These are all things from my youth. Didn't stop me. I don't actually know why I stopped.
Sorry, Councillor Howell, did you want to?
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. There seems to be a bit of a theme, doesn't there? We're all of a sort of certain age whereby, and I think we mentioned it before, smoking was fashionable. It really was. I'm a former smoker myself. I've been given up 20-odd years. I just one day decided, I saw an advert on the television of a lady sat in a chair with a mask on, unable to move, with a massive oxygen cylinder sat behind her, if anybody remembers that advert. And that was the day I decided I don't want to be that person in that chair. And that had a profound impact on me. And I literally gave up that day, and that was it. I never touched one since. But I had to train my mind into totally finding the smell of them repulsive. And I've trained myself to actually find... Some people still like the smell. I can't bear it anymore, which is fantastic for me, I must say. But obviously, everyone does it in their own way, doesn't it? It's totally different for everybody. But you're right, there are so many different pressures on young people, you know, to be part of a group or a gang or to be hip and cool. I'm probably talking way out of context here because but the pressures are immense. And what you said, Jill, about having young people there as role models is fantastic, actually. But also, there's got to be an alternative, hasn't there? We have got to provide an alternative, and that's whereby getting people more active, getting people out and using our countryside, using the Greenway, actively getting involved with local sports clubs, dancing, all those sort of things is providing an alternative. And we as a council are working really hard to make those things attractive for our young people.
Just been looking at the Olympics, and you don't see anybody smoking while they're playing the tennis or running the race. That's it, give people things to do. I genuinely, I'm not being facetious, I honest to God don't know why I stopped, but I did. And I stopped dead, and that was it. And I found myself looking for my cigarettes the other day.
Did you? Crikey. If I can come back on that, actually. One thing that I have noticed over the last few years are these silver bullets, these nitrous oxide bullets everywhere. They are now becoming, they probably are extremely fashionable. And I think you can go from that to vaping, to smoking. So we need to get even further back and say this is another trigger that could lead to people getting into all of those addictions. Once you've got an addiction to something, it's extremely hard to get out of it. But you know, those bullets, they're dangerous. They are actually really, really bad. What they do is they restrict the oxygen to your brain. They use them for soda stream things, don't they? So there needs to be some legislation. No, you don't. I don't know what. I think you sniff it or something. I wouldn't know, to be honest. I haven't had one myself. But you drive around the place and you see masses of these silver bullet things lying all around the ground. And I think when we're talking about vaping, it's here. We're now seeing these nitrous oxide bullet things in and around our country, and we need to now address that as well, I think. So one can lead on to the other. You talk about don't start vaping if you haven't, because it can lead to smoking. What if these bullets lead to vaping and then to smoking? So we might need to think of it in a broader sense as well. I just thought I'd raise that as well. Thank you.
Do you want to? If you've got some, sorry. I'll just see if you've got some ideas on that the silver bullet things. Is that something that's taken into account?
So I think that would. I think one thing I can say is, so although that sits slightly probably outside our smoking and vaping agenda, what we do is work really closely, obviously, with our colleagues in public health who work supporting around drugs and alcohol and those other addictions. And so particularly for the work with young people, we're working with them. So the services that go into schools and talk about drug use and about addictions, we're linked in with them to bring in the topic of vaping. So I think there will be that collaboration on topics more broadly around addictions and children starting in children and young people.
Thank you.
Can I just come back?
Yeah.
Sorry. In my view, nicotine is a drug. They are linked to each other. So actually working together as a team, you know, it is an addictive drug. We should treat it like a drug, shouldn't we, realistically? Thank you.
I think Councillor
Yeah,
Harrington,
I was only going to say on what you were talking about, the bullets, the silver bullets, they can be bought anywhere. They're easily bought. I don't know if you're not, yeah. Well, I know because railway stations, you see a lot of them lying about there. I don't know why railway stations, but round Wellingborough station we do anyway, a lot of them lying about. So they can be bought anywhere. The other thing I just wanted to really pick up on was that, where's that noise coming from?
it's not an alarm, is it?
Oh, is it? Oh, right, okay. I thought, I got a hearing aid and I thought, is it my hearing aid? No, it's not. But also the thing about youngsters, when they're young, they can smoke, they can vape, they can do all sorts of things, and they're still fit enough and young enough to have not realise it's doing them harm. It is later in life, of course, that these things do a lot of harm. That's when it, so just want to make that clear, really.
Yes, sorry.
Can I just agree entirely with you? One of the issues is that I've heard a number of young people say to me, I'll stop smoking and vaping when I'm about 25, 30, something. They forget that it's not easy to stop an addiction. And we see, don't we? We see people who are addicted to all sorts of different things really struggle to stop that behaviour. And nicotine is an intensely addictive product. And all of the people in this room who said, I used to smoke and given up, what an amazing achievement. And actually, you're all quite unusual, because very few people manage to give up without any intervention like that. That's amazing. Lots of people need lots of support and need a number of runs at it before they're able to do it. And I just wanted to echo, you are absolutely right. When people think, I will be able to stop, they forget. It's very, very difficult to stop. And just to reiterate the issue with the nitrous oxide has been with us as a problem for a long time, actually. And is something that our young people's drug and alcohol service are aware of and who are working with schools on. And I think, again, it's that issue of people understanding the risk as well that comes with these things. They're not risk-free, absolutely not risk-free, but we need to keep pushing that message all the time.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Councillor Roberts, did you have your hand up?
No, I just think that, thank goodness, this work is being done. And we just have to, I think I've put here, stop while young. We've really got to focus on that. And I'm not suggesting that it's too late for people as they get older, but I was once told by a doctor who said, you never know which cigarette it is that sets your normal cell off to be a cancerous cell. It triggers it. So you play Russian roulette with cigarettes all the time.
Yeah, one of the things that I was
doom and gloom scenario
was interested that we've done a lot of work, or there's a lot of work at the LAPS, trying to get well done, to help with these projects, and particularly as Jay mentioned, Corby, because and saying that it's connected with the disadvantaged areas, the cost of the cigarettes, if you are paying out for that, you'll have less money for food and anything else. So, I think to help people in that area, especially the manual workers, etc., they're not the most well-off of people. To stop is a fantastic achievement, because they will, I've no idea, but I just know it's very expensive. 15 pounds a packet. Yeah, I mean, over the years they said, if you put the price up, people will stop. Unfortunately, that hasn't panned out. It might deter some people, but not everyone. And so you can try all these different approaches, but by putting everything together and having this whole package, this whole project, doing all these different aspects, I really hope that you're not going to save the world, but we will save an awful lot of people from illness and pain later in life, or even when they're younger. And so it's a really worthwhile thing, and really thank the team for all they do.
Thank you, Chair. The final thing I just wanted to raise again was the priority groups, because the other thing that is a huge issue is smoking rates in people who've got a serious mental illness. So we will also, lots of us will know that if you have a diagnosis of a serious mental illness, that might be schizophrenia or a very serious condition, you're likely on average to die about 15 years earlier than the average population, which is enormous. When we look at the reasons behind that, smoking is often one of them. It's one of the leading causes of early death in people with smoking, with serious mental illness. And we really want to focus in on that and say, what else could we do to support that group to stop smoking? That can be quite challenging, because for some people, they feel that it helps them manage their condition and various things. But we've got to try. We've really got to try, because that inequality in life expectancy for that group, we must not accept that, and we must challenge it. So I just wanted to say that's why we've got serious mental illness as one of our priority groups.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for all the hard work you're doing in this area, and do keep us up to date with what the outcomes are really, and we look forward to hearing all the different statistics on the different groups and how we've managed to make an effect. So really thank you. I think we have one last item on the agenda, Executive Forward Plan. David, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Oh good, it's not going to start again.
Everything's got a mind of its own, hasn't it?
So, you should have in your papers from page 146 onwards the Executive Forward Plan that covers the period from August through to November. That's the published Forward Plan, and is a snapshot on the day it was published. There have been significant changes since then. I think I've got at least another 10 items to add on to said Forward Plan. Well, this isn't a living document, but the internal Forward Plan's a living document. So that's what's coming forward for the next 4 months. So if there's anything that piques your interest there. That said, there is an item after this, which is the forward list of items for the EAP, which appears on page 157, the final page of the agenda pack. And you will note that we've got meetings on the 4th of October and the 29th of November where the items for the agenda have already been populated. There is still one further meeting on the 31st of January, which comes just prior to the 2025 elections, so we're sort of leaving that free at the moment to see what the landscape looks like in 2025. But yes, your next two meetings look as though they're pretty much populated at the moment. I'll hand back to you, Chair.
Councillor Howell.
Yeah, thank you. You'll note on the forward plan, I presume, David, that that's because it's been updated since, that the active community strategy isn't on there. I would presume it, because we're going to discuss it in October as well. It's on the...
It is on the internal forward plan, so at the point that this was published, this document, sure. it wasn't on the plan.
Okay. So just to confirm what was said earlier, that the strategy will come to the executive in October, and we will get to discuss it in our October meeting on the 4th of October as well. So that'll be really useful. So thank you.
Yeah. Jane.
Can I just ask a question, Chair, about the October meeting has got winter demand preparation with Sam Fitzgerald on it. Just a suggestion is that we also have winter preparedness for health protection, so flu season planning and all the things that we put. If there's space on the agenda, very happy for our health protection team to come and also discuss that alongside that wider winter pressures item.
I think it's sort of all really quite connected, isn't it? So I would think that would be quite possible. So, David, if you could make a note of that, and you know, it's quite a busy meeting. There's quality of care market as well, but hopefully we'll be able to fit that in. But as you can see, the different early central government developments on the next one, and health inequalities, which was asked for at a previous meeting. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so just looking actually at the October meeting, and I agree we should include all the preparations and things that we're doing for winter. I would think actually that the active community strategy will be quite a meaty document with a lot of information that we might need to go. So we may need to have a look at that October meeting to see if we're able to make sure that we can give each item as enough airtime as is needed realistically. So that might be worth us looking when we are next have our agenda briefing to check that we might not need to have to push something a bit further down the line. I'm just want to make sure that they are meaty items, so we need to give them a good airing. So just thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments from anyone? If not, well, thank you for your time and call the meeting to an end. And thank you to the officers as well for your...
Yeah, and thanks from myself as well. Thank you.
Yeah.